Good afternoon. I think you all got our middle skill jobs for Iowa in your packet. Diane provided those to you. I just want to tell you a little bit. I have a little presentation. Just want to tell you a little bit about it. We did realize through our information and our research that there is a shortage of the middle skill jobs, and it does happen in Iowa as well. And the issues really came to the forefront and were confronted when we got a request from the Iowa Association of Business and Industry and DMAC, because they had access to a publication on middle skills that was entitled Driving Innovation for the Middle, which looked at middle skill jobs in the Southern economy. So we took a look at it and we're thinking, looks a little slightly outdated, and we have most of that information, and yes, we could do that. So it's kind of taken on a life of its own as we kind of joke around in our office. Here we go. The first thing we looked at defining middle skill jobs, and this definition is a national definition. It's used by most of the states and on a national level. We've seen the definition in the National Skills Coalition, who had done a study on the middle school jobs in the U.S. And what it's saying that the middle school jobs require more than a high school diploma or GED, but not a four-year degree. And we found in Iowa, as in with many other states and close to the nation, about half of Iowa's employment were in middle skill jobs. So what are some of those middle skill jobs? What we did was provide an example of some of those type of jobs. They're throughout the economy, throughout the industries. You can find them everywhere. And just wanted to provide you a brief list of what some of those middle skill occupations are. Remember, these require more than a high school education, but less than a four-year degree. Then I was asked to look at, well, what about high-wage, high-demand middle skill jobs? And for Iowa, at the state level, it would be considered a high-demand job if the annual growth rate was 1% or more. Of the occupations for the projection period was 2008 to 18, and the wage had to be above 37,829. So you can see a lot of the occupations here. We have some supervisors, we have some construction, some really hands-on type of occupations that occur within the structure of being both high wage and high demand. So both of those constructs had to be met in order to be on this list here. What about Iowa's jobs and workers? What we did, we took a look at a couple of different pieces of data we had to obtain the percentage of jobs. What we looked at was our occupational employment survey, and we placed all the jobs into three different levels: low skill, middle skill, and high skill. We also then looked at the current population survey to get the number of workers that they had for Iowa for 2010. So when we look at this, what are we seeing? We're saying that, well, our high school jobs in Iowa is about 19%. Low skill jobs at 19%. The number of low skill workers, 38%. Quite a bit of mismatch in that area. Our middle skill jobs, we again have a mismatch. We're seeing that 49% of the jobs are considered middle skill, while we have 33% of the workers in middle skill. We're seeing an opportunity here to upgrade our low skill workers then to middle skill and become greater opportunity earners and wage earners. However, we do have doing a great job at the high skill level. We're seeing that our high skill jobs, the percentage of high skill jobs in our economy, 32%, and the number of high skill workers, 29%. So we're doing a good job matching those workers at those higher levels. What about our job openings? Again, we looked at some 2010 information from our occupational employment statistics. And what we looked at this time was the actual count of the number of jobs. So we individually counted the number of jobs. There was about 730 jobs, and then ranked them as whether they were low skill, middle skill, or high skill. And it's very comparison to the previous slide. Low skill, you see there's less than 20%. Middle skill, 50%, like I said early on, and the high skill is at 32%. So what about our future workforce in Iowa? What's going to happen with that? Well, on this slide, what we did, we looked at population projections that are made with Woods and Poole econometrics model. And so we looked at where would the population lie in 2025. And what we discovered was that 2/3 of the folks that will be in the workforce in 2025 are already in the workforce now. Kind of an issue, because only 34% will not be in the workforce, or not in the workforce. So what this is saying is that we need to come together both privately and publicly and provide a better means to upgrade the skills so those workers will be available to ensure our state's economic success and be able to handle the jobs that are out there. When you look at the educational requirements for middle skill jobs, they're very specific. And we looked at what are some of the means of the educational requirements into the middle skill jobs. What are some of those avenues? Well, there's apprenticeships. There's associate degrees we can get from our community colleges. There's a variety of certifications. We heard earlier of the NAM certifications, the manufacturing certifications, the national certifications for construction and education, and there's the NIM certification, the National Institute for Networking Skills. And also the military is a great source. They provide a lot of training, a lot of certifications through the military, which then can help folks obtain jobs in the middle skill economy. How can education and training then be achieved by folks? Well, we've talked about some of these: apprenticeship program, career and technical schools. That's an area that's making a great comeback. It used to be called Voc Ed, maybe back in your day and my day. They're now career and technical schools. There's some career academies. And what folks are finding out, and we have a few of those in Iowa, is that provides a three-dimensional learning. It's not just sitting in the classroom learning, where students, and sometimes they're adult learners too, will learn the basics about the business and industries, and then also participate in activities that help them be engaged in actual work. What does that do for them? They feel a sense of ownership.
The system has detected that a minimum number of lines are connected to this
She's busy, isn't she? Yeah. It provides the students with a sense of ownership and importance and a willingness to stay in the programs, get their degree or certification, and then move out into the working field. We talked about community colleges having various programs. We heard about the wind energy program from Deb. Employer-provided or training. They're doing some training on-site in some of their locations on plants during work time and after. There's on-the-job training. I was in Marshalltown yesterday, and they told us about a great program where they worked with employers, and their goal was really to have just 7 folks complete a series of on-job training programs that they had, and had some employers involved. Instead of the 7, they're going to have 11 that's going to complete it this summer, so they had a real triumph there. And there's also military training. There are some nonprofit and community-based organizations that have provided training, such as energy, weatherization, training that's available. And there's always private career schools that are also a great source. This shows I want to give you a picture of the industry's distribution and the changes that's been made between 1990 and 2010. And we can see manufacturing. Has one that has had a large substantial change. Although it went from, 17.8% of the employment in Iowa down to 13.6%, manufacturing is on the rise. We expect in the next few years that the manufacturing, percentage manufacturing employment will increase to approximately 50%. So we're pretty confident that we're seeing a lot of growth in that area, and that will rise. We also see that financial activities has had a good portion of activity, from 5.7% of the employment to 6.9%. Professional and business services from 5.6 to 8.3, so that's about 1.5 times in 2010 what it was in 1990. And then education and healthcare services went from 12% to 14.5, so a 20% increase. So we're seeing some growth in some different types of industries within our economy in Iowa. And what has manufacturing? You know, manufacturing is a hot button here in Iowa. While manufacturing does require higher skills, some of what we have seen is that technology and globalization has changed the way in which the work is done. We're seeing that there's new processes. Manufacturing environments are now much cleaner. We're seeing a lot of robotics, computers, a lot of more advanced type of skills that are required to work in the manufacturing industry. And we're seeing through the digital revolution that manufacturers are also tracking their products and services, when things are complete, when the shipping is, doing the just-in-time inventory, and having that type of systems to make them much more efficient in the way they're producing their goods. Manufacturing has been on recovery in 2011, and 75% of the non-farm jobs were in manufacturing in 2011. And the manufacturers, the types of jobs we're seeing them hiring, they're asking for are machinists, welders, CNC operators, metalworking. Manufacturing now is about 217,500 in March. So we're seeing it grow. When it had dropped to, in 2010, was 200,500. So we're seeing a great, tremendous growth in our manufacturing sector and our economy in Iowa. Something that happens to benefit manufacturing, of course, is the NAM, Endorsed Skill Certification. I think you guys have probably heard a lot about that with the stackable credentials and how it assists students with basic education and understanding the industry and the business as they progress within their process of learning. The Iowa Innovation Gateway is also leading an effort to look at some certification programs. They're a big proponent of the science, technology, engineering, and math. And what the Gateway does is looking at ways and that local communities can come together using workforce and economic development education to move the commerce forward in that area, and then also to become a global player as well. What we're going to see is that with middle skill jobs, they're going to be middle school and high school jobs will become harder to fill. Our labor force is expected to grow more slowly. Both our labor force and our population have had small growth. Our population grew maybe, it's about 0.5% in the last 10 years, so we're not seeing a lot of growth here. The baby boom generation has begun to retire, and that's going to continue for about 15 more years. So what we're going to see are vacancies from when those baby boomers do finally retire. We've seen a slower retirement than we anticipated due to the state of the economy, but that is going to wrap up, and we're going to see more of that. And a substantial portion of the working age population, what we're hearing is that, and seeing is that they do not have sufficient literacy and numeracy skills. So the skills that they're coming to the workplace with are not the skills that the employers need. They're below. Some of them are just even at the basic level. So they need some additional training and services that, of course, our Workforce Development Iowa Works centers can provide those folks. Why do workers need higher skill? Well, technology has changed. I suppose you all don't remember when you didn't have a BlackBerry. So things are changing rapidly. And in order to keep up with that, we do need to have some folks with higher skills. We want to be a global market within the nation and without outside. We want to be competitive. And we have a lot of a talent pool within Iowa, and we can become that worldwide competition. And we're seeing the diminishing of the different types of labor markets. In the past, we see higher pay for some lower for lower skilled jobs. And now that's not so anymore. Those higher paid, lower skilled jobs are going away. And that's evident by some of the manufacturers maybe having a 2 or 3 tier system. We're seeing things much more in a different light. So what is the future? What are we seeing as happening in the middle skills in the future? Well, critics are saying, and nationally and at various states level, that the demand for the middle school workers will remain robust. We're going to see them in a lot of different areas. There's a lot of middle skill type of occupations in the science, technology, engineering, and math areas. Quite a large number, if you might suspect. And we're also seeing a lot in the green sector economies. Those also hold a lot of middle skill type of occupations. We're seeing an investment in high quality education and training that's going to be needed in order to meet the demand. Because not only the public school system sector will not be able to do this on their own. We're going to have much more training and look into some private realms, and employers is stepping up to the plate and being able to provide some of those services. And we're seeing low income and low skilled workers are going to be taking more and more advantage of the training that we provide for middle skilled jobs that can raise their standards of living and lower their dependency on some of the social systems that we do have in place. And that's it. I don't know if anyone had any questions. You do have. Oh.
Hey, Donna, I really love this. I love this document. I love this information. I think it's got all kinds of uses. When we talk about, just for the purposes of the board, and actually a question for everybody in the room, when we talk about quote-unquote stackable credentials, in layman's terms, what does stackable credentials mean?
Well, I am not the expert on that, but you have a series, my understanding is you have a series of credentials that then can be at different types of credentials that can be used to help you go forward and get a higher level job, a more skilled occupation. So different levels, maybe like Deb was saying, maybe have a two-day program here on certification and wiring electrodes or something. And then over here you want to do two more days of training and get a certificate in hot wiring, I don't know, neutrons or something. You can put those together, go to an employer, and you have all these different type of credentials that will then help you get a job at a higher pay, higher skill level job. So they work together instead of working separately. Those credentials should work together as a package that you
As
can.
a package to promote your employability.
Yes. Yes.
Ed, I have a question. When we're talking about standard credentials, we're talking about employability, and the employee shows up. Do you know, is there any discussion at a federal level with federal funding that would be provided directly to employers to support apprenticeship programs? Because we would have those people come into the door. I mean, in Great Britain, they've got an initiative that their prime minister unveiled where, I can't remember how much money, but it's direct payments to employers to do apprenticeship programs.
I would defer to Greer, obviously, but I know you and I have talked about the European model in different places and that thing. Greer, can you let anything on that?
No, unfortunately not. Not federal. There is nothing that's coming out that we're aware of. As a matter of fact, we keep just trying to fight for a travel benefit. So no.
Okay.
So no, there's not. They really, I guess the apprenticeship model in itself really relies on the employers and what the individual states do. There are things that states do. Individual states have done certain things directly to the employer. Tax credits for new hires if they're going through an apprenticeship program. Direct payment for the training. Michigan has what they did the direct payment into the employers who have apprenticeship programs and for each apprentice that they hired and things like that, but not federally. There's nothing that I know of.
We definitely got to get our arms around the stackable credentials because it means something different to different people from a definitional standpoint, and that's something we can work around from an agency perspective. I'm proud of Donna and her team for putting this together in the sense that it kind of evolved over time, and Director Waylight indicated that. There have been other consortiums, like the Southern Governors Association in southern states, where they've done similar types of things. But I find it interesting, if you think about the way we're set up in Iowa, we've got per capita one of the largest populations of people that have 2-year degrees because of our community college system. Yet we have, 50% of our workforce, or 50% of the jobs, rather, are middle skilled jobs. And the question is, how do we fill them in to the places that they need to be? So this report will be widely distributed come Monday. It will answer some of the questions I think people have with regard to where are the demands for jobs, what can they expect to pay, and then quite frankly, future forward going to 2018, what's the change going to be, plus or minus, within the respective industry. So that's something that I think the STEM folks can utilize, the Iowa Innovation Councils can utilize, and then of course business and industry can start to look at it as well.
And what did you say, Ed? We have 50% of our population has degrees, is that what you said?
We have one of the highest, help me out here, but I think we have, as a state, per capita, one of the highest number of workers that have 2-year degrees, if that makes any sense at all.
Yep.
In other words, we've got a lot of folks on the high end of that educational spectrum if you look at the definition of what a middle skill job is, which is somewhere between high school and somewhere between 2-year degree.
One thing, if this is going to be widely distributed, I think it would be a really good tool looking at development options. I don't see a map in here that shows which of the, you have Region 1, for instance. What does that cover? If you could put something online and reference that, so when people are saying, oh, that's great, I really want to drill down to my area, which of those would it be in, just for, I think, reference and usefulness purposes?
That would be no problem. As you see, we did include the middle skills for each region, so you can get more to drill down to your local area. So yeah, we
Right,
will
yeah, that's the
include that.
thing,
Sure.
it's great information, I'm just like, well, I don't know.
Really
what
know,
that record
sure.
is, where is that?
We will take care of that.
It could be just an insert in
Yeah.
here
Tennis type thing.
for the first time around.
That's a great suggestion.
Yes, when you're not familiar with those regions.
Right, well, yeah, and I know just from a county perspective, or just
Sure.
whenever you find information like this, you can use it.
We will take care of that for you. Thank you.
Other questions?
Other questions, anybody else? We'll enjoy the publication. Thank you.
Okay, moving along. Now, this is the time we're going to look at some dates that we put together for consideration, not something that's set in stone at this point. One of the things that in talking about the non-session meeting, which during the session we do try to do Fridays when our legislators are apt to be free and around to join us at the meeting. But we did put a Wednesday and a Thursday in there just to see if that hit everyone better than always on the same day of the month. I would take discussion on any of those dates. Whether they look good to you, bad day of the week, whatever.
I think it's fine. Who would know at this point anyway?
Well, I agree with that. I had the same kind of thing. We could hope we could plan around these dates, but
Is
it doesn't
the-
always happen.
Does the 6th of September, does that fall the week of Labor Day?
Yes, it does.
Sometimes when we have those holiday weeks, we lose people for vacation because they're taking that extra day, so, right?
That's the one we have to have before. That was it. We were talking about the updated
Yeah.
plan.
I know
So
the
we were
RWIs
trying to
were
give us
that
a little more time between the meeting and
Yeah.
when it was due. We put it pretty close together last year and had some difficulty there, so. Well, we'll go with these, if there are no objections. And please note, the time is like today's time, rather than our traditional has been 10 o'clock.
Well, but, not that I care, but what was the reason for the change? And did we lose people because of that, or?
I'm not aware of any of it. This was our director's request.
I did catch it at like the end of, when I got the packet.
Oh, yeah.
So,
If you want to go back.
oh, no, it's fine with me. I don't care, because I have to come.
Okay? We'll move it to 9:30 for futures.
I'll forward this to all the board members, and we'll also post it online at the state boards on your webpage.
All right, any other business to bring up? Any comments, any news you want to share?
I think we're going to just talk about the delay and
Well, that was what we were talking about.
Well,
That it,
because I didn't know if you wanted to know.
any more?
Yeah, which I have the right person.
Lori, did you want to say something about annual reports?
Well, it's probably more concerned in terms of my division is the strategic plan is what is also due September 15th. And this year we have to do a total rewrite of our 5-year strategic plan for the Department of Labor. In the past several years, what you guys have gotten is a modification and update every year that we need to have you approve before we can submit and be authorized to receive WI funds for the state. This year they're requiring a total rewrite of the plan, which is a good thing. It needs to be refreshed. It's just, they basically gave us very short notice that they were changing how they were doing it this year. So we're in the process of doing a rewrite. So we need to have that to you and recognize an adequate time for you to review it and us to discuss any changes that we're making in that plan. So we should be looking for that this summer.
But this is a little over a week rather than less than a week that we
Yeah.
had this past year.
So it'll be,
But we'll have that ahead of time.
you'll have, oh yes, the intention is to have it well in advance that you can all, and to give you a paper copy so that you're not trying to download something from the internet or trying to read it online, because it's going to be it'll be a lengthy document with attachments. So we intend to get that to you well in advance so you can read it, we can have a good and meaningful discussion.
Perfect. That's what we need. Something more to read.
In the summer, you don't want to.
I might just inform the board too that Iowa received a $100,000 contract through the Department of Labor Office of Disability and Economic Policy for an Employment First contract, which basically is focused on helping individuals with disabilities look at community-based integrated employment as a first option. And Vocational Rehabilitation is the lead agency, but we're coordinating and received excellent collaboration through 8 other state departments, and Ed and the director both wrote support letters and have been involved with the coordination of how do we integrate this into a more seamless system. So I'll be able to keep you updated as we go forward, but it was certainly appreciated, and I think the departments are working together to move that effort forward.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other announcements? Hearing none, we can adjourn. Anybody want to make a motion?
We don't have a quorum.
We can't do it.
That's right.
Well, you never get out of the
Everybody,